can imagine that it's every man for himself. There's no real centralized expert or like resource to teach gym owners how to service this entire other demographic of gym attendee. What would you call it?
We call ourselves athletes because we have to train like athletes. And that's the goal with this, is to be able to go to all these people that are suffering with disabilities so that they can continue to be better and continue to be healthy. The biggest thing for me was just kind of figuring out the technical side of it.
But I feel like editing can get like very quickly commoditized, where it is about the dollar and it is about like the speed.
That's kind of when I started to realize, was like, okay, well, there's a little bit more that I have to think about than just number of videos, time spent. I need somebody that's going to really kind of understand what we're trying to do. What looks good? How do we make it look professional?
Yeah, the consumer level production gear, like shooting on an iPhone, is like totally acceptable. Welcome to Let's Fix Post, a show about making post-production smoother, smarter, and more collaborative for both creative teams and editors alike. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Today I'm joined by Drew Plauché, the founder of Adaptive Fitness Coalition, a mentorship program dedicated to making fitness accessible to athletes of any ability type. Drew is really inspiring to me, not only because of the mission of adaptive fitness, but also because despite not having a background in video at all, he has found himself in the position of needing to explore the world of post-production, which I can only imagine is incredibly daunting. Our conversation today is a deep dive on his experience of navigating that journey for the very first time. In this episode, we discuss the fears and challenges of outsourcing post-production, especially for the first time, why the relational side of a partnership is more valuable than a purely transactional one, and Drew imparts one piece of advice to anyone in a similar situation that's finding themselves needing to find a post-production solution for the first time. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that you do too. Let's get into it. I'm excited to be chatting with you, Drew, today, just talking through your experience as someone who is new to video in general and then found yourself in a situation where you needed editing done. So excited to kind of talk through a few topics there. But before we get into that, we'd just love to hear a little more about you and what you're building with Adaptive Fitness Coalition.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Drew Plauché. In 2019, I had a spinal cord injury, which left me paralyzed from the waist down. Through a bunch of intensive rehab, I've been, able to kind of get back on my feet. I really want to spread that with the world. So I partnered with a local gym owner who has kind of coined a perfect recipe for neurological rehabilitation. And we're trying to package this up and be able to teach other gym owners around the country how to train people with special needs. So any type of neurological injury, or we're also doing intellectual side as well. So Down syndrome, autism, things like that. We're going to teach these guys how to handle them and coach them.
And how does video play a factor in that outreach and that teaching?
Yeah, so really we're trying to showcase safe ways to move these guys around, showcase some of the common issues that they may have, like upper extremity weakness, things like that, just showcasing different types of exercises and how to continue their strength journey, even though they have some deficiencies in limbs or wherever. So the videos really play a big part in just showcasing what type of movements we're doing. We're also going to use it to like showcase how we're training them. We're also doing like a certification side to this. So we're basically going to have a whole business section to this course, where we teach them everything from marketing to running the business to creating outreach groups, things like that. We're going to have a whole nother section of videos kind of explaining that and going into detail on how exactly the business runs and how to add this into their existing stuff.
I think there's tons of value that y'all are bringing to the table here, because I'm not in that world, but I can imagine that it's kind of, every man for himself. There's no real centralized expert or like resource to teach gym owners how to service this entire other demographic of gym attendee. What would you call the gym guest, right?
Yeah, we call them athletes. That's what we call it.
Athletes.
So we call ourselves athletes because we have to train like athletes, to overcome a lot of this stuff. And And that's the goal with this, is to be able to go to the hometowns of all these people that are suffering with disabilities, and be able to plug a program in so that they can continue to be better and continue to be healthy. Because a lot of times these standard gyms are just not accessible. And there's no real place for these people to go after like their physical therapy, their initial physical therapy. You kind of get kicked out after a while and there's nothing else for them to do. So we're trying to mitigate that and promote a little bit of positivity, promote, health and fitness in these people, because it's super important, especially for anyone with a disability. I mean, this can be life changing for most of those people. So that's our goal, is to be able to reach them where they're at.
Yeah, I love it. I'm super aligned with the mission too, and just thankful that you guys are doing what you're doing over there. So grateful to have been able to contribute to it. Let's talk a little bit about your experience diving into the world of exploring post-production. It's been my understanding that you don't have like a super professional background with video as far as like what your experience has been built in. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, none.
Okay. Yeah. You're coming into this as part of like what you're doing with Adaptive Fitness Coalition is your experience building with production and video creation, is my understanding. So having come to this relationship with that, what could we have done better to guide the process and kind of like make things smoother? Because I assume you've never had to hire an editor before, right?
Yeah, I'd say really the biggest thing for me was just kind of figuring out the technical side of it, like camera settings and like how to, fit a background and like all of those little kind of nuanced things that now we've kind of got down. That was like the biggest hurdle for me, was like, what looks good? How do we make it look professional? And, what's the easiest and most cost efficient way to do that, because obviously we don't have an unlimited production budget. So that was kind of one of our stipulations too, was like, how can we do this, professionally enough, but on a tighter budget?
Yeah. And I mean, the consumer level production gear, like shooting on an iPhone, is like totally acceptable. I think it's just so much more accessible to get a good quality picture with something that you just carry around anyways, right? With your phone.
100%. Yeah, that was a nice thing, is that we do have nice iPhones that can record and do these things pretty professionally. So that was a good plus.
So have you been able to implement the stuff that we kind of chatted through as far as like different production things to change? Because I know the first batch of stuff we're working from is like before we had those conversations. Have you made adjustments since?
Yeah, so all the camera setting recommendations, all of that, we've done that on these. We filmed 2 more athletes, and I think we've got maybe 2 more left. So we've been able to tweak those, and hopefully that makes it a little bit better on the back end as well. So we'll see. I think our biggest struggle is the microphones. We need to upgrade on the microphones. I think it might be our next step.
Yeah, I feel like audio capture is like a whole other beast compared to the video side. Because for me, like, so I had done freelance videography, right? Like everything from like the concepting to the shooting to the editing. And I think the thing that pushed me into doing post only was just how stressful production is, at least for my personality type. And I think the thing within that stress that was like the tip of the spear was audio, because like video, I can see that it's coming in a way that I'm like, yeah, I see the red light. I see what it looks like. But audio, it's like, I know I could see like the levels on like, if you have like a recording device or whatever, but I'm like, I still don't know if I trust how it's coming through. So yeah, I feel you on that one.
Yeah, so that was a learning curve for sure. Making sure the mics are turned on too, that was another thing. So just, beginner mistakes really, but we're pretty good now, so.
Good. I hope that, what we contributed there for the production stuff was helpful. What do you feel like in your experience when you were looking for editing help, like you recognize the need that skill set wise, you didn't know if you'd be efficient enough at doing it, or like from a capacity standpoint, you're like, this is way too much to fit alongside all the other things in your life. When you were going through that process of finding somebody to come in and fulfill that role, can you just describe what that experience was like?
I kind of went through it in 2 things. Was like, okay, can we do this like really cheap? Like outsource it to some random people that'll do it for like, I don't know, $1 or $2 a video. Will that meet like what we want out of this? And then kind of once I dove into that a little bit, I was like, I don't feel like, one, it would look how we want it to, and two, like, I feel like we're going to be doing more work than they are on the back end of trying to, like, organize all this stuff. And once we found Archaius, I was like, wow, okay, well, these guys seem pretty legit, and from our first meeting, I was like, I don't know if you guys even work with dudes filming on an iPhone, but that was kind of one of my things, but fortunately we were able to kind of overcome and talk about that. And it was nice. The bonus of you guys is that you really come with all the knowledge of the production side. Like we don't have any of that. So to me, that's almost invaluable, in itself. It's like, have somebody that knows what looks good, knows how to film and do all these things, to just kind of guide us and give us a direction as to like how to do it professionally. And then the organization and all that side has been really well too. So
I think one of the things that I was really excited about was it just seemed like you had a very like big openness to approaching this as a partnership in a way, right? Like that willingness to listen on the production side, right? And say like, I'm here to try to improve upon what I've been doing. Like from your perspective, right? And like give us an opportunity to be that resource to do that. I don't know that that's something that you would have found with somebody who, like you said, was doing it for a cheaper rate, or like usually cheaper rate to me equals like overseas or like outsourced. Do you feel like that has like I maybe like the relationship or like the correspondence that we've built up, the rapport, that this relationship has lent itself to, has that played a factor in how you feel like it's going, or was it part of your decision in wanting to move forward with us?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As soon as like I felt like he had really bought in on what we were trying to create, that kind of sealed it for me. I feel like if you kind of can understand and be a part of what we're trying to do, it makes it easier for us to like say, hey, here's our vision, help us craft it to be good. Because I think on our side, we're really good at seeing like, okay, this is exactly how we want it to be, but maybe not putting it into play. And that's where you guys have been really helpful. It's like, okay, here's how it can look. Here's some things on the video, like keep it simple and those kind of things. So I think that's been very, very helpful. And that was a big part of my decision for sure.
Yeah, that's super great to hear. I think I get in my echo chamber where like I feel like this is important to people, right? Is like the relational side and being able to hop on a call in like relatively the same time zone, right? Like maybe 3-hour difference or something, and have kind of a base level of understanding of like what the needs are from just being able to communicate perspective, right? So it's nice to hear that is important because, like I said, I'm just kind of in my echo chamber. I'm like, I think it's important, but I feel like editing can get like very quickly commoditized, where it is about the dollar and it is about like the speed and maybe like a more transactional approach of like, I put money on into like, a cart on a website and I hit checkout, and then however much time later I get it back and there's none of this. Was that what you were finding?
When I was, starting out looking for everything, trying to figure out what to do, the relationship side wasn't even really in my thought process, I'd say initially. But once I kind of dove into it, was like, okay, like, what am I going to get out of outsourcing to this cheap company? What am I going to get from someone professional like Archaius? That's kind of when I started to realize, was like, okay, well, there's a little bit more that I have to think about than just like number of videos, time spent, that kind of stuff. It became more like, okay, well, I need somebody that's going to like really kind of understand what we're trying to do, because it's still a little bit conceptual, it wasn't set in stone. So I think that's kind of where it lent itself to. But initially that wasn't, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about a cost standpoint and just how can we knock this out kind of deal,
Yeah. Did it feel like other relationships you would need to have everything completely ready to go, packaged up, so that there's no margin of error because no communication could happen in this way?
That's what I was worried about, was like having to go through a bunch of revisions or this and that and a bunch of back and forth that's like not productive. That I was kind of worried about that.
Nice. Well, that's great. I'm glad we were able to address that. You kind of spoke to this a bit, but like maybe in like a more pointed sense, like what scared you the most about considering outsourcing editing?
I'd say really our biggest fear was that it would become too big of a project and like we would run out of funds, halfway through. It's like, I mean, we were trying to do 400 videos. We've now downsized a little bit from that, but my fear was that it was going to become super expensive and it's going to take a long time to recoup just the video editing side, and when we have so much more to do. So that was kind of one of our biggest fears. And the other side was like, we wanted to look a certain way, and that was kind of one of our important points, was like, you know, we need this to look professional. It needs to stand out to these trainers as something legit. And so that, it wasn't necessarily a fear, but it was something that, you know, I definitely wanted to make sure we were doing.
No, that makes sense to, hit it from both a quality and a budgetary perspective. Like, those are huge, important pillars. I've had different conversations with people who have outsourced, and it's like there is this fear that the deadline's going to blow past, so it's going to be late, and then it's not going to be very good, and now it's late and the quality isn't good, and then to get it corrected and fixed is going to take even more time, but then also more money. So now, of the three sides of the like value pyramid with like speed, quality, and cost, you like blown all three, right? Seems like a very legit like risk that could happen making the wrong choice.
100%.
What do you feel like surprised you most about the process of working through post with an editor?
I'd say really the level of detail, like our style and brand call. I was like, wow, there's a lot of components to this. Even though our videos are pretty simple, there's still like a lot of parts to it. I was just surprised by that. That was something that caught me off guard, but I'm happy that, because it shows in the ends, like, okay, all that time spent doing that was very well worth it, because we didn't even have to say anything. It's like the videos are coming out great.
Yeah, I feel like one of the misconceptions is just like how much front loading time there is of information gathering. I've seen other companies that are like we were talking about are like more transactional, right? Like, fill out this form, upload your footage, and then we'll do the rest. And I'm like, how? Like, I have something to learn from you if you're able to turn out something that's on point. And I'm sure it varies from like, you know, project to project, how complex it is. But like, what has been the most successful for us is like having a call and like getting all of that like exhaustive stuff up front as much as possible to try to nail it on the V1. Like, that's every editor's goal, is to like nail it on the V1, not get revisions is the dream, right? Yeah, I don't know how you do that without front loading all that information in there.
Yeah, you guys did a really good job of that, and it's helpful for us too, because it can kind of help us guide when we're filming. It's like, okay, we want to make sure that we have it this way. So that's been another bonus to that.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear you bring up production, because I feel like right now we're trying to encourage the relationships that we have to engage with us before post happens. Like, during the pre-production phase is ideal, just because of how much those decisions affect everything downstream. It's like, if we can connect from an editing or post-production perspective before the stuff is shot, then you should see that pay off in the end result.
Yeah, I definitely wish we had done that a little sooner.
What did you expect to be hard in the post process that wasn't? And then vice versa, like, what did you think would be like no issue, piece of cake, and then ended up being not hard, but just like more involved and intricate than you initially thought?
So I'll start with what I thought was going to be hard. It was actually nailing down kind of our vision. I thought that was going to be a lot more complicated. Just the way you guys asked questions and kind of the way we came about it was relatively simple. It was a lot of information, but in the end it was pretty straightforward, and like we were able to nail it down pretty good. There's nothing that's been like I thought would be easy. Like I thought it was all gonna just be work, you know, at the end of the day. There's been parts like just naming all the stuff, like all that kind of back end stuff has been a little more than I like, but that's just kind of the nature of filming a bunch of videos. There hadn't been anything I'd say that stands out too much.
So my last question would be, what would your one piece of advice be to somebody who is in your seat, has never really done video as like their core specialty, and is now finding themselves in this need-based situation where they have to find someone to help execute the back end, but they don't really even know like where to start? Like, if you had one piece of advice for them, what would that be?
Honestly, if I were to redo it, I would find the editing service kind of before I started production. I didn't realize how beneficial having your input would be. That would be the one thing I would change, I would find somebody as soon as possible, because at the end of the day, you're going to have an editing team. And whether you outsource it to someone cheap or use someone that's professional, that would be my word of advice would be start sooner.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Every video ends in post, right? So if you have the end in mind from the very beginning, I mean, I could get on that soapbox all day, but you did it much better than I could. All right, Drew. So if someone is interested in learning more about Adaptive Fitness Coalition or just getting in contact with you, what are some of the best ways for them to do that?
Right now, we are still building out our socials, but we are going to be at Adaptive Fitness Coalition on Facebook. And then you can email me at info@adaptivefitnesscoalition.com. Our website's not up yet, but it'll be adaptivefitnesscoalition.com.
Well, thank you so much for being on, man. I really appreciate the perspective that you brought, and looking forward to continuing to build with you.
Absolutely, David. Thank you, man.
Thanks for joining Drew and I in our conversation. I really appreciated the perspective that he brought, especially being that this is his first time ever needing a video editor and then navigating the journey of outsourcing that task to somebody he's never met before. It takes a lot of trust, there are a lot of risks, and I really appreciate the heart that he brings to the partnership that we have. I also really appreciate his insight in realizing how important it is to be fully aligned with your post-production team before production even begins, and then bringing them through that journey so that post-production at the end is smooth and everything ends up the way that everyone intended all along the process. To learn more about Drew and what he's doing at Adaptive Fitness Coalition, check out their website. We'll make sure to link it in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us, and don't forget to hit subscribe. This has been Let's Fix Post.